you've had invoices and lists from us, that's us. There might be a change coming there soon, but that's what it is for the moment. So you may as well get used to that one. So I've got the best job in the world. This is when I wake up in the morning and go to work. That's just one
Oh,
view I get on a foggy morning. Sometimes there's mountains in the background, and it's like I could take a different one of these every day, and it's just after 25 years of working here and living here, we are definitely still not sick of the view. The workers that get to work right at the very top of the hill, they're usually pretty happy, except for when there's a chilly wind blowing, like there was a couple of days ago. Um, so I'll move on to this, right? So this is just a picture of a rose called Cecilia, which was bred by my father back in 1990. It was released around about the same time as the flower carpet roses, and it sort of cemented my intentions to go into wholesale nursery because I could see volume. I could see that, yes, rather than growing 3 roses or 4 roses or a bench of roses in a retail nursery, we could produce masses of the things and put them everywhere. Now, this rose was probably more successful in our family business, which was a retail nursery and rose specialist nurseries, which I think there would have been about 20 or 30 of them around Victoria at the time. In the early 90s, and I think there's about none left now. I think the last one's pretty much just they've just retired. But look, this was more successful for us than the flower carpet rose, and what well the flower carpet was for us. And there was not a customer that walked in the door that didn't walk out with 1 or 10 or 12 or even sometimes up to 50 of these.
oh my gosh.
It was incredibly successful. And the funny thing is I couldn't sell it at all now. It's sort of past its time. It's not healthy enough by today's standards, and we have and it's just interesting point that from a retail point of view that this rose did so well at the time, and now we wouldn't even look at it twice. And that's the improvement we've seen in breeding over a long well, it's not that long a period of time. It's a generation. It produces hips too quickly. It preferred to be on its own roots. It was a bit of a struggle when it was budded on a tall standard. All things nobody wants to deal with. So we've moved on from it, but this was probably what really started off my itch to do what I'm doing today. Just seeing what was possible at the time. Um, this is what our nursery looks like at the right time of year. Few roses in bloom. You'll see in a minute what we're dealing with now. Of course, you'd be pretty much aware of it yourselves. You'd see it, and there's another view. What we see in spring, first flush of spring. Um, when we start sending out flowering roses, that's what we're dealing with now. Really, great stuff. This is all winter prune stock, which we carry. We tend to carry over a fair bit of it purposely to make sure that we've got continuity of supply. So that and it worked quite well this year. When people ask me for Mother's Love for Mother's Day, I could just say how many, which is a very rare treat because usually by then there's not a lot of roses left on the market, and it comes at a cost. There are other things that you can't carry instead of it, but this is the reason why we carry over some stock, and sometimes do these. These are winter pruned, repotted, put into new pots, and sent out to nurseries if. And we now have some nurseries that prefer this to a fresh bare root, but we do a fair bit of that these days. That's what's happening at the moment. This is new season potting that got a couple of people there carefully labeling and loading trolleys, making sure they're all going to the right places. So that's just today's lot that's going out tomorrow morning. So generally, you can see there mostly what we do is all 2-year-old stock. Labeled and in a way so that labels don't get damaged, so they stay on the plants hopefully. So yeah, look, but what I'll do is I'll move on to a little bit of what we've got coming in over this season, and I'd just like to talk a little bit about new release roses. We've had the whole industry of roses has had a couple of difficult years. Getting used to weather. This up and down weather has been really difficult for a lot of growers. There's been changes of management at some businesses, which I think a lot of people would be aware of in the industry. So supply, by my guess of what I can see, is roughly halved in the last few years of roses in general. The where that feeds through to is that new releases generally become not so available. There are actually a lot fewer coming onto the market this year, just because it's just budding numbers, and it's budding numbers of what happened, what was done 2 years ago. So we're looking at even some things not being released now, but a little bit later in the season. Maybe at the start of flowering season, maybe even through to autumn, before there's much stock, and the numbers are generally low. But nevertheless I'll run through the varieties that we're sort of seeing this year, and it's a fairly small group. But I'll start with the David Austins. So we've got this lovely one, which is a climbing variety. Called the Lady of the Lake. Sorry, just check. Are you seeing my slides or are you seeing me?
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah, slides. Yeah, because I'm just okay, good. So this is Lady of the Lake. It's a David Austin that they've been brought out this year. Now, look, I don't expect to see any bare rooted stock of this around, or any early season stock. I'd say around about November, December, we might see a little bit come through, which is not normal. Usually there'd be hundreds, if not thousands, of these things, but we generally tending to find again this year we're in tens to hundreds. But look, this is so this will be a late release. It's a climbing rose. It's quite typical in a way of what we see from Austins, and a nice cupped bloom. Fragrant, disease resistance. I mean, look, they're probably one of the top market leaders on producing disease resistant roses, and have been for a long time. And more disease resistant than just saying it on the label, which, I mean, you see that a lot these days. Eco-friendly, disease resistant, this, that, and the other. But then it's up to us in the end to really assess it and know which ones are actually truly good. And we find Austins are one of the three best in that area. This is the other Austin, which for this year, which is William and Catherine. Look, we've found it performed really well. I mean, you can see the sort of number of buds that are produced on these pots. It is quite a bushy variety, even in Australia. These photos would be from England, but I find it though it'll be a bit taller, it has performed really well for us. We've had really, these Austins usually, when we've got stock, will go onto the market on the 1st of April of every year, rather than in winter when the bare root season starts. So we make them available there. They'll be on the top of our list. And this one's had really, really good uptake. So and they've moved through very well. We've actually had good follow-up supply. So again, look, there was a little bit more around of this, but the sales have been quite impressive so far. So there's not a lot more coming through again, probably till later in the spring period. But definitely there'll be some more available. I'll move on to where are we? This next one. It's a Belgian variety. It's sort of got those very fine stripes through the petals, quite ruffled, like a lot of roses are these days. We've seen a little bit of it. We've seen a little bit from this breeder, whose name, unfortunately, I can't remember, and that's the sort of a bit of a marketing issue that we have with this breeder. But there's about 3 roses of his on which have come to market, but we haven't seen a lot of follow through with them, and not because they're not good varieties. It's just they're sort of one of those things that slip onto the market and then they get forgotten. But we do want to do a little bit of a push down the track with these, because the 2 or 3 varieties that have come out over the last few years have actually been really good. Again, healthy, very free flowering. But look, it is again low stock, but it is one to keep an eye on. I think it'll move reasonably well. Probably not something to fill a whole bench with, but certainly something worth to put in under that. Hey, here's something new. And it is a little bit different in that it has got those very, very fine mottly sort of stripes through it, which is, with most striped roses, they're starting to get interesting in that we haven't seen that sort of cabbagey look in a rose with stripes a great deal yet. But I think there'll be a little bit more to come there over the next few years. Um, Delbard, they're still around. There's been a lot of up and down with Delbard. Again, changes of agencies, changes of management, it's just endless. It never seems to stop. But they are still around, and this year, this is this Montmartre. The T is silent, I have been told by a Frenchman. Now, Montmartre is a district in France, so this would be part of the painters' collection, I guess. It's a district in France which is synonymous with artists' retreats and or a district in Paris, actually, on a hill to one side. Don't exactly know where. I've never been there, but this one looks quite interesting. It's again, you've got that sort of really sort of modern mottled effect on it, and it's a from what I understand, a floribunda type. So very free flowering, bushy, lower growing type variety. So yeah, look, again, limited numbers, might be a bit more around of it through the season. There's a little bit there. I'll come back to that with the small numbers. This is a Mayland rose. It's not the best photo in the world. I've got a picture of a label coming up next. Edith Piaf. Now, this is a climbing sport which has actually performed really well. I'm not a big fan of climbing sports as a general rule because they're really too big, but most of them. But this one doesn't seem to be huge. It's got the good fragrance of the plant it originally came from. It's got a very, very, really nice deep red. Hence why I've put that photo up, because the label's actually a little bit light. And it's got big flowers. The flowers are actually, like with very few but some climbing sports, the flowers are actually bigger than the original plant. I think if people are familiar with climbing peace, you'll find that it's often got flowers much bigger than the bush often produces. So that's the label that's coming out with that. So that's one of the new Mayland varieties that's got they've sort of got a very similar style label for a lot of their newer varieties, which I'll show you a little bit later. But look, this one again, there's sort of that. There's a little bit of it around, not huge amounts, but but it'll be around a little bit more than some of the others. Moving on to now, I'll just go through because of the lack of new releases. So that's what we've got to offer this year in new releases, and often they'll be like some years we've had 50. And you just don't know what am I going to do with all of these things. You do 100 or 200 of each. Well, that's 5,000-10,000 plants, and they're not necessarily all going to float. And people sort of sometimes will hear from garden centres, oh well, why don't is release the good ones? Look, you sometimes never know what customers are going to pick up, and a lot of these things sit out at the trial gardens in South Australia, and there's a People's Choice Award. And you think, right, this one will do well, we'll grab that. Not at all. You don't sell one, and you just don't understand why people like the look of it, but nobody's gone to buy it. So it's, as I said, new releases. Yeah, it's some we can expect they'll do very well. Sometimes you never know. This was a new release last year. When I first listed it, didn't shift. They just sat on the ground. We pruned them again, sent them out again. Once the first one went out, that nursery rebought them, and we've found a few other places. We have never seen a batch of new releases go so quickly. This Always an Angel, again, still not around in huge numbers this year, but it went very, very quickly. It is an exceptionally healthy yellow rose. I think the name helps. It is a fundraiser for, it escapes me who, for, I think it might, I don't want to get this wrong. No, I'll hold back. But it is a fundraiser. Like quite a few Mayland roses, and it has been very successful, and it gives you really good shelf life. And we sort of like those roses too, because we can list them a few weeks in a row, rather than just get that 1 week out of them. Then we've got these. Look, this is a set of labels. These are recent releases out of Mayland. Look, generally speaking, we're tending to find they're all very good. They are one of the other breeders that do generally provide us with very healthy roses. And we tend to find, in terms of their disease resistance, is even if they do get a little bit of black spot on them, it doesn't reduce their vigor. They can be trimmed back, they come back, and it doesn't really hurt them a great deal. It doesn't overtake the plant and leave you with a half dead plant in the garden that just sits there for the rest of the season, like some of the old varieties used to be. But generally, yeah, the vigor really is good with these roses. New Papa Malin's been very, very popular. We've done very well with that. Endless Love was last year's release, so they didn't hang around for a long time. Again, I think the name is quite suitable there. Sub-Zero has a special meaning for in the racing fraternities. So, and look, there's a fair few white fragrant roses coming out at the moment. It's been quite good. We've been pretty impressed with it, and it's one of the ones we're going to continue with for the time being. Another set of labels. These are also recent Mayland releases. So we've got Princess Charlene de Monaco has been very, very good. Mademoiselle Mayland is very similar in its growth habit to the two of them are quite similar, though one very similar flower shapes, both very fragrant. They've been very good performers. And of course, we've got the Sisters Rose in the middle that some nurseries have picked up on and decided, oh, look, yes, we need this for all the sisters out there. And they've had a lot of success with that. We've had a lot of, for the nurseries that have bought it, we've had continuously needed to resupply them. And look, we're building up numbers on that still. We haven't found how many we need to continue all the way through a season yet. So every year we have more, and they still sell out really well. All right, we'll move on. Who have we got? Okay, so these are some of I haven't got any new Cordis releases to show you. We haven't seen the labels yet. There's only the numbers are probably the most limited of everything that's around. So I've got for release here, which was one of last year's releases, which has been one of their more successful ones for the last few years. Generally stays healthy, good healthy blooms, don't get marked too easily, got a nice fragrance. So we're increasing our production of that one. Often, sometimes with new releases, if we'll have them 1 year and say, yeah, no, not going to really continue with it. This one where it looks pretty promising, I've put it up next to Perfume Passion there, which was a new release probably about 15 years ago. And it has done exceptionally well. So if you haven't got it in your nurseries, it is something you need to have there, because who doesn't love a nice pink fragrant rose? We can't produce enough of it. It's always nice to have a bit of fresh stock of this on the bench, on the nursery benches. It stands out. Like every now and again, you get a release that just outperforms everything else. There's probably about 10 of them around at the moment, about 2 or 3 Austins, and this is the one Cordis variety. We're hoping for release will go the same way, but this is the one variety that has really performed exceptionally well over a decent period of time, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere other than still on our truck and out to nurseries. Ultraviolet. I wanted to include this because Cordis has done a lot of climbing roses over the last few years, and I do get asked for them occasionally, and there's a few that I don't do, and I'll say, well, look, they just don't flower enough. This label does sell this plant very well. It flowers more than some of their others. Now, not to say that in the ground, like I've spoken to people who've planted them in their gardens, they've said, oh, no, they do fine. I won't mention any particular names, but it's been part of their range. It's like we look for varieties really that we can present to our customers in a pot, and you will have a nice flowering plant there for a period of time. And hopefully the next place it's going to be is in somebody's garden, not the specials bench, where we hate to see roses on specials benches, which is where it's going to end up if it doesn't flower. So some of the other varieties we just don't do because we just don't feel like through autumn we get enough bloom off them. So this one's been a good success if anybody's looking for a good, really deep red sort of burgundy type climber. So next one. Now I'm going to just run through a couple of Del Bards. Everybody's got that one rose. I think every rosarian, every person that grows roses commercially has that one rose. I say, why does this thing never sell? This is one of those classic ones where when people see it, they go, "Oh my God, this is beautiful," but they never buy it. I don't understand why. Maybe it's just not the day for it, but it is one that certainly deserves a little bit more attention. We will grow it. We're going to try and sort of push it and hope that some people pick it up in small numbers. Probably would do quite well as a set with, when there's some other Del Bard labels there, and this one's among them. The flower is absolutely stunning. The foliage is perfect. It's glossy. The thing is fragrant. The flowers hold well. It repeats well. I mean, at the moment, we're only growing enough of it so we make sure we sell out of it. We're hoping to increase that because it's an absolutely wonderful variety. And in those sort of, non-Austin pink varieties, as I said, it is one of the better ones around. I mean, there's been a couple of other breeders who've got this sort of rose out there, but this one has performed better than most of them. In terms of its performance. Not on sales, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get there. We'll be able to push it a little bit more and make it a bit more visible. And that's one thing with these things: constant visibility of good plants. When customers are seeing them out there and they see this thing again and again and again, it's just consistently being there. People get to know these things, whether and hopefully we'll be able to build something around that.
And this is where,
Just,
Daniel, we want to work with you, and where
mm,
we've got the general customer on our social media as well, that we can help try and educate them and help them work
mm.
together with you.
Yeah, look, as I said, we're sort of trying to, again, like there are varieties we just won't carry because, as I said, we want them to look good on nursery benches, and this is one that I know does. I could probably list another 20 or 30 of them. That might be a story for a different day because we can just sort of show you, well, how about these? And another really good place to do that is, trade day when we can get them there. This Morris Utrillo is just there because out of all the Del Bards, it's my favourite. It is just a kaleidoscope of color. It will deepen up. Sometimes you'll have more of the deep. You'll have some really deep burgundy red in it occasionally. The yellows can be really bright. This is only one representation of it. I could probably do an album just on this rose. And when you get some really good, consistent warm weather, it just improves. The flowers get bigger, deeper in color. It loves summer, but mind you, that doesn't mean it's not a bad rose in cold weather. It's good then too. It's for me to love a rose. It's pretty much got to be all round good. I can't handle dieback or something that sulks just because the weather's this way or that. But it's improvement that you get with it in summer and during warmer springs, and even it's a great autumn rose as well. That's probably when we get the best out of it. So I just had to put it in there. I've got a little bit more stock available of it this year too, on purpose, because I'm hoping we get another warm summer and get some out there with huge flowers on them. Now, where are we up to? We've got, oh yeah, look. So I want to just preview some of the 26 releases for David Austin's. We've just been notified of what those ones will be, so hopefully that'll follow through. Now we've already got better numbers of all of these except this one. This one's going to be in a little bit short supply, and all I can say, and all a few nursery people that have spoken to me over the last few years will say, finally, they've been asking for this rose for near on 10 years. It's finally getting released. So it'll be around next year. Really trying to build our numbers up mainly for spring next year. There'll be a reasonable amount for winter, but yeah, this one is basically, finally it's getting released. It's got a lot of popularity without ever having been available. We'll move on. There's 4 of these. Lark Ascending. Look, the photo of the bloom itself, it shows it's sort of fairly loose petaled, which is actually not an unusual style for David Austin's. They're usually quite happy to release these onto the market, and I've got some plants here of it that I've had over the last year, and I'm really quite impressed. It's got a relaxed form, but it's a sort of metre and a half type shrub in England, so it might grow a little bit bigger than that here, but it's got a fairly relaxed form. I tend to find that sometimes people get worried over how long do these flowers last. I think they're okay. They last long enough. And I tend to find, especially with Austins, if the longer the flowers last, the slower the repeat. People have sometimes said to me with some of their roses, and some of these are the older ones that we don't really have on the market anymore. Flowers don't last long enough. I said, yeah, but when is it ever not in full bloom? It's just they repeat so quickly that some of these varieties that that's how it doesn't matter. It's look, I've been pretty happy with it so far from what I've seen. Even small plants, they've flowered quite well. Next one is this. Now, look, we're not. This would be a great one for the landscape market, and dare I say it, I hope I don't get myself into trouble for this, but how would this be in some of those places where you see, let's just say, white ground cover roses, up off the ground a little bit, which is one of the, and not great big blackberry type rambling canes on it. It's just, I mean, look, there's no foliage on this to be, I mean, there's foliage on it, but you can't see it. And word from England is that this just looks like this all the time. It just produces more and more stems of flowers. And the plants I have here are young grafted plants, 14 centimetre pots. They have not stopped flowering and I haven't touched them. They've been fed. That's it. They've not been pruned or anything. The plants are getting quite large, but constantly, as soon as there's a spray of flowers out, another stem, set of buds, another lot of flowers. So hedging, landscaping, I think this is going to be an absolute cracker, provided we can get it to the right people. So just think about your landscape gardener customers. I'm hoping independent garden centres still have some of those. They're still going to get better stock from there. So it's one to keep an eye on. And again, I don't know, some of you here, you know me. You've asked me for Rugosa alba. I was like, oh yeah, good luck. Let's see how we go with this. It's just getting harder and harder to get anybody to grow it. It's a very difficult variety. I've said to a lot of you, like for every rootstock that is planted in the ground, you'd be lucky if about, saying about 30% of those end up as a saleable plant, which is a big cost. To get such low, so that's an average. Some years you have good years, and look, no growers yet been able to figure out how to make this thing work. So I think this is a sort of a good alternative for white hedges. I mean, disease resistance isn't going to be any less. So Kew Gardens, that one. So just remember that one for next year. If it's close enough to the ground to be nice and bushy. Flowers a lot, and I think it should do quite well. Last one, James Galway, climbing rose. Again, good numbers coming through for next year of this one. Climbing rose has always produced plenty of budwood. Look, not a great deal to say. It's a pink climber. We haven't seen plants of it yet in our own nursery. It's one of the ones we didn't have here. But look, everything we're hearing from David Austin's, they're exceptionally happy with it. It seems to be performing quite reasonably here. So another option for a climbing rose in Australia where we need sort of shorter true climbers, because again you don't want Queen Elizabeth as a climber to try and train over a 1.8 metre arbor. These sorts of David Austin types are going to be a lot more successful for home gardeners, and they do have a tendency to flower a long way down the plant. Right. So I'll move on to.
Am I allowed to ask, are you going to speak of the King's Rose that we saw at Chelsea?
Not yet. Not yet. Look, it'll be a few years before it's here. I think people were just shocked that why would David Austin do something so garish? And it's like, why not? Why should they not do what other breeders do? Look, it's one thing it's David Austin. It's going to be healthy. It's going to flower well. It's going to perform well. Yes, it's a little bit like a few other things that are on the market. It's there's going to be a particular clientele which want to buy it. So there will be supply of it. We generally tend to find these days, like going back 15 years, maybe more, even 20 years back, there were always David Austins that did better and some that didn't do as well, and that sort of disappeared pretty quickly. And some of them you couldn't explain why. I tend to find it doesn't happen so much anymore these days. We do smaller runs of some varieties and they just trickle over quite nicely. We don't sort of tend to see this, right, here's a new David Austin and it just doesn't sell at all. It just cannot move it for one reason or another. We see that with other roses, but I haven't seen that with David Austin so much over the last probably 10 years. We've been able to sell some quantity of almost every variety, or pretty much every variety they've released. So look, I think, as I said, I think there's going to be a market for it. And I think it'll probably be quite a good sort of hedging landscaping rose as well from what I've seen so far. But I think, yeah, it's 2030 release maybe. I don't know. It's not here yet. I don't know if it's been brought in yet. So, and there's quite a list. I've got a reasonable list of things that are getting released over the next few years. So, so being a new release this year over there, we're still probably 4 years behind. They are trying to catch up, but we're still quite a few years behind.
Probably 5 years away, Daniel. I think it's
Five.
certainly not here.
No, it's. I don't think it was. I got sent a new list just the other day, and I don't think it was on it. So there's and I think everything on that list is actually in Australia. So
I'll send Lisa the link to their new magazine. Did you look at that yesterday or this
I did
last
look
week?
at this. It was very good. Their
Yeah, I'll
first.
send you the link, Lisa, if you want to send that to everybody. That has that rose in it, and it's a very good magazine. But anyway, back to you, Daniel. Sorry to butt in.
it's that's all right. Actually, it just brings me to a point which I probably should talk about is that David Austin is a company, like, out of all the breeders that bring roses into, like, send roses to Australia. They support Australia probably better than any of the others. I mean, there's still complaints about, oh, we get nothing from them, nothing from them. Well, they're at least going to an effort. Not everybody will agree with it, with what they do and how they do it. But to be quite honest, they are actually going to some effort. And the media that they give you through the internet, with the magazines, they do mail outs, they have a big mailing list. They tell you where you can get them. They come to Australia. We've seen somebody from Cordis and we've seen David Austin's and we see almost nothing else. So they do go to a fair effort. So we do feel like we're a lot more supported these days than what we used to be. So it's worth having a look at their website and see what you can get access to in terms of images and their media that they send out, because they do that worldwide. So moving away from Austin, so just a little bit of something else we work on. There's always a bit of interest in there is an interest in Australian bred roses. We've had some interesting releases over the last few years. The late Bruce Brundrett bred some very interesting varieties. I don't have any images of any of his, but we do carry them. We carry about half of his range on a fairly regular basis. And we're working on a project which we started pre-COVID, and it was a way too big a thing to be interrupted by COVID to be able to just move on with. And we've it was our first time experiencing getting labels printed, which I'll say was a complete and utter disaster from about 3 steps in. So we've restarted all of that, but the breeder whose stock we have, and we've got about 40 odd varieties of their roses, but again, not everything's going to be up to scratch. I reckon there'll probably be a good half a dozen that'll remain on the market long term. And when we're hoping to finally get these labels, the design finished and reprinted or printed for spring this year of a certain number of varieties. But the roses we're finding, and this is unfortunately not the best image I've ever seen of this, there are some better ones around, but this is Blissful Sensations, which is he's an Australian breeder. We're basically looking at some highly fragrant roses. There's a really good shrub rose with an incredible fragrance. It can get quite apricotty in the center. So these are the ones we're sort of working on. Where they're already released onto the market, but there's no colour labels for them at this stage. So we're trying to finish this off and finally get all these done. This is a big shrub rose called Done Deal. It flowers like a floribunda on a 2-metre bush with metre-long stems, but heads of flowers on metre-long stems. This one is an interesting one. It's just the colouring on it's quite interesting, getting that sort of apricot-y centre and the pink edges on it. Very, very pretty. Not one that Warren wanted me to bother with, but it was in one of his older batches of breeding. He sort of was more interested in his newer stuff, which I frankly didn't find was as interesting. But we rescued this out of his old farm paddock and have started to produce it, and it's an absolutely stunning looking flower. And we have since found a cream coloured sport with a sort of champagne coloured centre of it. But you know what we do with that, that's these things tend to happen. But it could be something of interest in the future as well. And then we have one more there. Now this is probably one. Now it's not the healthiest rose in the world. I've got to say that. I'm certainly not going to have anybody print disease resistant on the label, but it lives. It's got enough vigor to perform, but the novelty factor of what this rose looks like is incredible, and we can present it quite well. It's a really, really good cut flower. Flowers have lasted 3 to 4 weeks, and they just start off the pink, as you can see, sort of at the base of the flower, and you see all that green tinge that just increases as the flower gets older. And we have found that not that I like to do things by race, but the Asian customers love this rose. There's been a fair bit of purchasing from them. And they do like their specific things. There's a couple of other roses that should probably be mentioned that they love too. Things like they love Austins. The Asian market for Austins is really quite good. We have the amount of Olivia Rose Austins and Roald Dahls that they buy is quite impressive. So that's something to keep out. They do like interesting things. So there you have it. That's slide presentation. Now, in terms of, I'll just put this other photo on while I talk about these other couple of things. Look, in terms of over the years, we've always been grow the rose, grow the best rose. Don't worry about anything else. Just grow the best rose. It was my father's philosophy as well. He says, look, if you're the best at what you do, that's all you need to do. Well, unfortunately, that's not quite right. But so it took us 20 years before we had a logo, which will now we're going to be working on that a little bit. And look, we think it's probably time. It's been a little while since there's been any sort of branding in this industry, in the rose industry. There's a little bit like, you get you get Malin the breeder, you get Cordis the breeder, you get that, but there's not been any sort of product on the market like a potted rose with a branding on it. So it is something that we're looking at. Of course, there's always costs involved with that, but hopefully that comes back through sales. But I think it'd be something that works very well for, again, independent garden centres. Now, we don't grow for big box. We refuse to. We're not interested in it. I mean, why do they want another person to do the same thing as somebody else does? I think the answer is pretty obvious. So we basically, independent nurseries is what we aim to supply mainly.
That's why we love you, Daniel.
Oh, thanks, Tina. We love you too.
Yes.
But yeah, there may be a little bit of something coming in terms of branding. I think it's possibly time that happened again. I mean, the last time we saw that was Rankins, and that was a long time ago. It is a long time ago now. So yeah, and that hopefully, look, as I said, it'd be lovely to get some feedback from independents to see if they think that would just something that would help them establish a good following from customers. I mean, look, we already do what we can to support something becoming a strong brand in terms of the quality that we just, we're not going to do it by halves. We do put a lot into it. About the only thing that's the same between our roses and what you generally see around is where the pot comes from. The amount of work that goes into getting this potting mix right. I mean, that's been a journey of over 20 years, and it's we're finally somewhere, and now we're seeing some murmurs that there could be some more changes there. But it's also an opportunity to improve further. But yeah, that's a big thing, and yeah, look how we take care of them. I mean, we sort of look at how many times does somebody pick up a rose before it's sold? Pick it up, put it back down on the ground, pick on it, feed it, spray it, pick it up again, prune it again.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a plant that gets picked up more often.
No, there is not.
There's a reason why I don't know. Other than a few specialist things, I think orchids are more expensive than roses. I sometimes have my doubts that they cost as much to produce. It is a lot of work.
Yep.
And every time you try and find a shortcut, you just end up in more trouble. It's an enormous amount of time, and of course, labour costs are going down. So, look, the other thing I wanted to mention, which I forgot a little bit earlier, just on where we're up to with roses at this time of the year. One thing that people get wrong in nurseries, and I just want to mention the one thing: water them. Bare root roses, water them. I tend to find people let them dry out too much. Oh, yeah, we've had a few rainy days, then you get a couple of sunny days and they're drying out. The thing with roses is they're mostly field grown. These things can get 1.5 meters tall. Last year they were bigger. There was less stock, and less stock means bigger plants in a field because they're further apart, so they've got more space to grow and more resources to grow from. Roots are 2 meters down in the ground, even by the time they are only 2 years old. And what do? We cut the things off and stick them in a small pot. It's not viable to put them in a 30-centimeter pot and present them to you like that. Nobody's going to buy them. So they don't have a lot of roots on them, considering what they've had on the top. So just don't let them dry out. This time of the year, it's crucial they don't dry out.
Yeah.
So with my roses, generally, if you're stocking fresh potting from me, if the water's going straight through them, they need more water. It should actually sit on top with the potting mix we use. And then if that's happening, then they're fine, because the potting mix has got enough water for itself. All the microbes, all the fertilizers, the pine bark, the other things that are in it, they all need water too. So no feeding required at this time of the year. I probably wouldn't even go as far as a sea sol or any of those sort of things. I would just keep them watered. Especially potted roses, a little bit different to in the ground. Feed them when they're growing. If you've got a batch of roses and you had a couple of bad weeks and they didn't sell and they're getting towards the end of flowering, feed them then. Feed them before you prune.
Off with their head.
Yeah, feed them when they're deteriorating from their flowering. Not everybody likes to go out, prune them, and then send out the apprentice and say, "Oh, by the way, go and feed those roses." And a week later, they've fed them, but they've already started growing, and it's kind of almost want them to start growing before you deadhead them or before you prune them. And look, at this time of the year, the only thing you've really got that'll sell the rose, other than this brilliant plant will provide you with, is the label. So just make sure they're on the plants, they don't blow away, and that they're clean. This time of the year, it's worth going around just making sure that just if you're watering every day, usually it'll wash any debris off them anyway. But if you get a dust storm like we seem to, even at this time of the year, just make sure those labels are clean and looking good, and facing front.
Yep.
But yeah, well, that's I've probably gone on more than long enough.
That's not like you.
Not like me at all. Come and see me at Trade Day. Any of you go on a Trade Day? Come and see me there.
Absolutely, we'll be there.
I can talk to you some more. Now, I don't know how to get rid of this sharing thing now. I sort of think you should probably look at me now.
Does anyone have feedback for Daniel in relation to what he's looking to do towards potting and branding? Does anyone have any feedback there for him?
No, he does a bloody great job.
Oh, thanks, Tina.
No worries. I wouldn't stock anyone else's.
Dear.
I'm a bit biased, but you can do worse than follow what David Austin does. You probably haven't got quite the same money they have, but anyway.
Well, they do provide us with some good varieties. I said when I talk about those three breeders that provide us with the best variety, they're basically Mayland, Cordis, and what's the other one? And David Austin's, of course. Those three. It's we do love what they produce. Sometimes it's like Cordis will produce a few that are a little bit different too, but I'll talk about that on a different day.
What would be your three top selling roses? Would it be Pierre de Ronsard? What else? What would be the three?
You nailed that. Pierre de Ronsard for
Ronsard.
us. It's I still cannot stock enough of that rose. It's I've been told for years, oh no, it's not selling anymore.
Oh, yes, it
I
is.
said, no, I think you might be, this person over here might be selling a few less because that person over there's actually finally got some this year. So it's spread out a little bit more. No, we cannot. Pierre de Ronsard definitely our top seller. A climbing rose, who would have thought it? I'm not going to mention iceberg because look, unfortunately, without iceberg, we probably wouldn't have gotten off the ground. And we still do produce a lot of it, but it's its own thing and it's a different market. It sells to a landscape market. It sells to property developers. It's a plant in its own right. So we'll just take it out of the concept of roses and we'll just, So we've got Pierre de Ronsard, Mother's Love, obviously, label. That is equal to Pierre. It's not the best rose I sell, but it's certainly the
most popular.
It's certainly up there with the most popular.
Would Just Joey be up there?
Look, just Joey, maybe not top three, but top five, I'd say so. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because there's another rose that I absolutely love, and I always want to put a David Austin in my top three, though. I'd probably be lying a little bit. But it is exceptionally popular, and I still haven't found how many of these I need to keep everybody satisfied either, and that's Olivia Rose Austin. Again, a couple of people were saying, it died off a little bit this year, and I'm thinking, but you had twice as many Ancient Mariner next to it because that was the new release for the year, which also sold exceptionally well, but different kind of rose. But Olivia's, let's say at least it's my best-selling Austin. Perfume Passion's up there as well, but Just Joey, it'd have to be the pick out of the older varieties.
And when you're looking at trends at the moment, you're looking at bush roses versus standards versus weeping versus climbers. Where do you think the trends are heading?
Look, I think weeping roses is a bit of a dream that some people have, but they're a lot of work. And they're getting like we won't. They're a lot of work for us as well, so they're expensive, but they should be. There's no reason why weeping rose should be cheap. It's it just encourages people to put them in and neglect them, which is and look, I've found from year to year our best marketing has been like if we want to know how's this season going to go. Well, drive around in late October in Melbourne and see what the roses are looking like in people's gardens. If they look good, you're going to have a good year. That's the best marketing of all. So, it's look, as far as standards go, I think there's a bit of excitement. Some people get a little bit excited about standards and do some crazy things with them in terms of, here's one pink, one yellow, one orange, one white, and it looks hideous. But mixed colours can look nice, but
don't tell my mother that. She'd be just devastated. She thinks it looks wonderful.
Right there, Dan, you're right.
It can look nice, but the problem is that you also have, one Frasier, one Mr. Lincoln. I mean, I get landscapers
and a blue moon.
And alternate yellow and red roses.
Double
Gold
Delight.
Bunny and Mr. Lincoln. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
Yellow and red. What about Double Delight?
Yeah, well, that's it. Just get it in one. And don't ever believe anybody that tells you we shouldn't be growing Double Delight anymore because it too. I mean, I can barely keep up with that.
Popular. Yeah, I love it.
It deteriorates after a number of years, but it's popular.
Yeah, I sell heaps of it.
Yeah, and the fragrance is easy to sell. That's why Pierre still surprises me. It's not really known for its fragrance, but yet it is probably, as I said, it's probably our most
It's vigor.
Most popular rose, outside of Iceberg and, as I said, Mother's Love, but that's partially not the rose we're selling, it's the label.
Oh, and because it's a beautiful flower, it's a good climber, and it's got vigor, and it holds up.
Yeah, easy to grow. It's easy, and then people say, "Oh, can I have a bush one?" I'll go, "Here it is, climber."
Yep.
And you can trim the thing back as a bush. We do it. It seems ridiculous on a 3-foot standard, and people just look at me and go, "My father had just." He'd put me in the naughty corner. But it can be grown. You can very successfully grow it as a 3-foot standard. It's just work. That's all. You just have to maintain it. It's just a matter of knowing how to prune it. But it certainly works.
Did anyone have any questions for Daniel? Any further? No?
No, they probably just want me to stop talking now.
Well, thank you so much, Daniel. It's been so interesting. And we will most certainly see you Tuesday at Trade Day.
Oh, yeah, come and pay us a visit. Tina, come to Trade Day.
Tina, come to Trade Day. We miss you.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people have been saying that. It must be very quiet there without
It
me.
is. It's not the same.
It wouldn't be. No.
Oh, no, we've got. Who have we got? No one.
Shut up, Daniel.
Daniel, in an ideal world, if we were to
Thank you
place
very
an order
much.
for Trade Day for you to have time to pick it and pack it, when
Bye,
would
everybody.
you prefer they were in by?
Oh, Trade Day orders.
Yeah.
About for next week. About now.
Now, get on it, Liz. Get on it.
Yeah, about now.
I'll be sending my list tonight, darling. I've nearly finished it, so
Oh, good. Good.
Speak to you on
Look,
the phone.
there's just on that for our customers out there. Look, we one thing we hate is that farmers do things by the calendar. Not all of them. Some of the really smart ones don't. So hit April the 1st, and out come the diggers, and it's like, you can't be digging this. This is ridiculous. So we're relying a little bit more on 1-year-old stock this year, because of the disasters of the season of 2 years ago when all those rootstock were planted for 2-year-olds, which is unfortunate. It's not something we like to do.
No.
They have not been dug yet. They will not be dug for probably another 3 weeks. The standards are out. So we're just going to be starting to process those end of next week, but bushes, it's just not worth it. They need to go through a process. They need to see some either very hot, dry weather or some really cold weather, and we've only just seen cold weather. And even though it's just they just haven't wanted to stop growing, and because of the couple of cold snaps in summer, the 1-year-olds have required more irrigation to get some size into them. So the season's gone on quite late. They are coming out a little bit later this year. But there's some good numbers of 2-year-olds out there that we're ready to send out next week or so. Yep.
Good.
Daniel, in relation to pruning,
yes,
early pruning
John.
versus late pruning, because the season has been so long, none of our growers have dropped any foliage.
No, and it makes pruning very, very difficult, especially if you've been, like us, we've got batches that we've been pruning, again and again and again and again, to keep them in top form, and they're just covered in foliage. Look, we're pruning a lot later this year. We had flowering roses at June Trade Day. We couldn't help ourselves. We just had to do it. And they looked good. Some of them looked as good as they do in November and March. So, we are pruning later. We are starting that whole process a lot later this year. We like doing it early only because then we're done. We've created a bit of a headache for ourselves this year, but it's just they just need it later this year. You can't be pruning roses, winter pruning them when you've still got a month of really good warm weather ahead of you. It doesn't work. They just want to grow again. So I'd say later, yes. And customers, I'd advise later too. I've been sort of saying, second half of July, when the first one starts to look like it's got signs of growing for the spring, prune them all then. So.
All right.
Good. Yeah. All right then. Well, if no one else has any further questions. No. Very good. Well, thank you again very much, Daniel, and we look forward to seeing you Tuesday at Trade Day. Thank you very much.
All right.
I'll
Cheers.
call you.
All right. See you, Tina.
Thanks, Daniel. You're the best. See everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Brad. Bye,
Bye.
Lisa.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.